Hi everyone. So good to be here. It's how many times I've been to your partner? It's like probably in this room like 20 times or so. Very good to be here. Always a pleasure to be in the beautiful country of Georgia. Today I have a very difficult task. I need to convince you that art is important and you should consume it. And it's not easy, except for the fact that this university actually has the most beautiful art around this floor, filled with very beautiful things. It's very rare. If you go to a university in Europe or in the US, it's way worse. So you're very lucky from that perspective. So the reason I came up with this topic, I've seen a news story that was very annoying. And this I think is very revealing. So what happened was there was an art installation, a modern art installation, that the cleaners of the museum saw it and they thought it was rubbish and they threw it away. They got rid of the art installation. And I thought that's kind of weird. And then there was another example of a pineapple that somebody put in an art museum, and the museum staff saw it and then they enclosed it in glass. So they thought it was art. So we have one instance where art is confused with garbage, and we have another instance where fruit is confused with art. There was another story, a similar thing happening, and in America, somebody saw glasses on the floor, and they thought it was art. It was a big deal. Now I find it very bizarre. I think it's a very bizarre thing. If I were to, let me give you an example. If I write this on this whiteboard, if I write this word, what is that? Do you know what that means? Which field is that? Which science? Physics, right? Why the people here, why when they saw that, they couldn't say art and not throw it to the rubbish bin? I find it a bit weird. What if I write, I don't know, 2 plus 2 equals 4? We know what field it is, right? Why we have this confusion when it comes to art? We don't know. It could be garbage, and it could be the opposite, right? Okay, let me, now I want to say that I think there are two things in the world, two fields that you can either be, you can be a complete charlatan and you can make a lot of money. And that is art, modern art. You can be, you can be a witch doctor and you can sell a blessing for a lot of money. This will cure you. And you can also sell this for millions of dollars. And both things are worthless, both things are meaningless. This is the most famous example. I remember when I was in high school, this happened, 2019. And there was a very famous charlatan called Maurizio Catalan. And he taped a banana on the wall, a real banana, not a plastic banana, an actual banana. And he sold it for $120,000, and then he made 3 more. He more than 3, I think. This man is a millionaire from selling these kinds of things. How is this possible? There is some confusion there, I think. So what is art? I'm asking you. What is art?
Everything you feel.
Everything you feel.
Yes.
The word to express passion.
Everything you feel. So this is art. If you feel it's art,
It depends on people.
it depends on people. So
For
why I
me,
can say,
for me, it's
why
not
can I
an
s-
art.
but why can I say this is? You can say this is physics, right? Why can you say that, but you can't say if this is art or not art?
It's subjective.
What explains it's subjective? How could it be that we accept something that's the only thing in the world that we accept that it can be completely subjective? Why?
It's about imagination.
Imagination. That's part of it. That's part of it. It's a very important part of it. Now, keep moving the other direction. Okay, so I want to give you, it's a bit of a complex answer. Art has to do with philosophy, and Itamar here gave us an excellent introduction to one field of philosophy called ethics. Art is a part of this. You see, here is ethics, and you have aesthetics. Aesthetics studies art. What is beauty? What is art? Why do we need it? What does that have to do with human beings? And when Itamar gave the example previously of things that human beings need, they need food, shelter, clothing, you know, they also need art. And this is a subject of philosophy that studies it. So there are two philosophers that are this is Plato on the left and Aristotle. And the entire tradition of art is divided to these two schools of thought. One is Platonism, and most fundamentally, most basically, Platonism that says in you can't see. Metaphysics is the field of art that studies what is the nature of the universe. What is this world that we live in? Is it a world that we can understand using our minds? Or is it mystical? Are there other dimensions? Is there a world of forms? As Plato says, there is a world of perfect ideas, of abstractions, and there's this world which is a reflection, is a fake. So Plato thought that this reality is just a reflection. Are you familiar with the allegory of the cave?
Yes.
Very famous. So it is about that our world is fake, and there is reality outside of it. Aristotle, on the other hand, said that there is this world, and we can understand it, we can make sense of it, and there's no such a thing. So, yeah. So these are the two converging fundamental approaches to philosophy. So Plato was very anti-art because it is an imitation of an imitation. What does the artist do? He, for example, you have an excellent example there behind you. We have people fighting the French Revolution. So we are using things that we understand. We know what people are. We know the French flag. So the artist takes these things that we understand, we are familiar with, and he rearranges them in this format called a painting, and he shows us something. So he imitates reality. So for Plato's perspective, the artist is essentially fraudulent. He's a charlatan, which interestingly, that's what actually happens, as we've seen with the examples before. They were real charlatans. But Plato was very anti-art, whereas Aristotle thought that art is more important than history, because art shows us what is possible. History only shows us what happened. So we can learn more from art. Now, as Itamar touched on Ayn Rand, she also had a definition of art. But even before that, I want to ask you, well, we already have the definition, never mind. So I'll give you the example. Rand said that art is a selective recreation of reality according to the artist's metaphysical value judgments. Do you guys understand what that means? I'll make it much simpler for you. Imagine we have a bowl of fruit. An artist paints a simple bowl of fruits. We have some bananas, as we like bananas, some plums perhaps, and the artist shows you them very rot. They are decaying. The banana is black. You have some ants walking on the banana. How would that make you feel? Would you like to eat the banana? No, you wouldn't like to eat the banana. So the artist shows you, using these objects that we are familiar with, he recreates reality according to his metaphysical value. It means he thinks that this banana is not tasty, you shouldn't eat it, it's dying. Whereas if I would give you, the lighting is awful, if I were, I can't use it. If I would, imagine this is very nice and bright. If I were to give you an image of very fresh grapes and fruit, you would want to pick it and eat it and enjoy life. So the way in which the painter approaches his style, his subject matter as well, you can, yeah, if you can do that, I think, yeah, well, it's a very beautiful painting, okay?
I can see.
Trust me. You can turn it on, that's okay. So that really shows you what is his view of the world. Now this is a very simple example, and then I want to touch on a more deep issue. Art has to do with epistemology. Do you know what epistemology is?
No.
No. It's the science that studies how we understand the world. What is our means of acquiring knowledge? According to Plato, the philosopher I've shown before, the things that we live in the matrix, he says that the way to know things is to remember. We remember things. So we know from the previous dimension, we know everything because everything was perfect there. And now what we are doing here is just trying to remember. There's no new knowledge acquired, it's just remembering. Whereas Aristotle, the other guy who thought that this is the world we live in, and there are no fake other dimensions, he said that we can understand the world using our reason, our senses, and we can come up with ideas about it. So what art does is it makes it obvious. It takes that idea and it shows us. So this shows us, as I told you, his view on the fruit and other things. Now, are you familiar with this story?
No.
Well,
It's a very famous story by a Russian writer called Dostoevsky, called Crime and Punishment. You're familiar with it, right? What is the name of this character? Raskolnikov. What did Raskolnikov do? He murdered an old lady with an axe, right? And the story is about what happens to your psychology once you go and murder an old lady with an axe. Now I can write an essay about it and prove to you that it's bad to murder old ladies with an axe. That's fine, yeah. But once you read the story, you have this image. You don't need me to tell you stories and then to give you an essay because you know this character Raskolnikov. So once I just say Raskolnikov, you understand what it does to you when you murder old ladies with an axe. So you see what art does? It makes it easy for us to understand complex things. Another example is Howard Work. It's a book called The Fountainhead. And Howard Work is this character of an architect. And this architect has a very specific idea of how he wants to build buildings. He has his own vision. And he's not going to let anybody tell him what kind of buildings he's going to build. So the whole story is his struggle against the society that doesn't like his approach to building buildings. So from this character, this concept of Howard Work, I know what kind of a man I can be, I can aspire to be. So I don't need to teach you a whole essay about it. I can just tell you, be Howard Work. You know, and when you have a difficult question, like for example, should I go and serve in the Georgian army, for example, and you can ask yourself, what would Howard Work do? Would Howard Work waste 2 years of his life to go to the military? Or he would focus on what he wants to do and build buildings? You see what he does? You know the answer because you know this kind of character. Now, these are all very interesting examples of great books of literature. Now, and this is another painting, my favorite painting, you asked about it, Gia. This is my favorite painting, okay? This one. The Wonder Above the Sea of Fall by Caspar David Friedrich. This painting shows us a man on the top of a mountain, on the top of a hill. And he's enjoying this moment, he's looking. It's a painting about looking. But you can take this image and think, I want to be this kind of man. I want to go and reach this summit. It makes you motivated, it makes you inspired. Now, does that achieve anything of what I've just talked about?
No.
When you look at this thing by Mark Rothko, this thing is worth millions of dollars. This thing, yeah, you don't even see anything. It's okay. What that doesn't do is anything that even the simple fruit painting does. It is useless. It doesn't tell us what kind of a man I should be. It doesn't tell us what kind of man I shouldn't be, like Raskolnikov. It doesn't even give you a desire to eat fruit. It doesn't give you anything at all. And that is not art, because it doesn't fulfill that function. It doesn't recreate reality according to a metaphysical value judgment. If there's no reality there, it's just black color or gray, and it doesn't tell you anything, it doesn't do anything. Now, I want to take us a bit throughout art history to show us how these two ideas manifest, this idea of Plato and Aristotle, that art we shouldn't have art is bad, is an imitation of an imitation, or art should celebrate life, we should focus on living, we should have beautiful things. This, and I want to also say, there is a very deep connection between the history of philosophy and the history of art, because the history of philosophy shows us how ideas have developed throughout human history. And history of art shows us how it looks like. So to really understand the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Greeks, we need to see their art, because it shows us in a physical way we can understand much more simply. So if we take this for an example from ancient Egypt, what do we see here? Do we see a person or a woman that is happy? She wants to live, she has values, or she wants to kill old ladies with an axe, or does she want to do anything? Does she want to eat fruit? What does that make you feel when you look at this lady?
To be honest, nothing.
Nothing.
Sitting.
She's just sitting. She doesn't live, right? She's static. Now take a different example. This is an ancient Greek sculpture, one of the rare few that have actually survived. What is that? Does this man look like? He has values, he has things he wants to do.
He just looks strong.
He's strong. Okay, anything else?
He looks alive.
He looks alive, he's standing, he can walk. She can't walk. Sorry?
He has spatial expressions that make tell a story.
Right, exactly. He has an expression. She doesn't have that. And these are the fundamental differences. This is a Greek, and this is an Egyptian. Now, I want to give you a quote that really encapsulates how ingrained art was for the ancient Greeks, and also think about the difference between our world that we live in. This is by H.W. Jensen, a very famous art historian. Beauty was more than an idle conscience for classical Athenians. It also had a moral dimension. Prose and expression reflected character and feeling, which revealed the inner person, and with it arete, which is Greek for virtue or excellence. Thus, contemplation of harmonious proportions, beauty, harmonious proportions, that could be equated with the contemplation of virtue. So for the Greeks, beauty was virtuous. Art was a moral. A moral person enjoys art. Now contrast this with our world, where we have bananas selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. What went wrong? This versus the banana. Or this, another great example of a Greek sculpture. Yes?
I can say that this generation art represents this emptiness. It doesn't have any more values.
Which generation?
This generation.
Our generation. That's right, yes. We don't have... art has become a joke, as we've seen with the first example, the guy with the glasses and the pineapples, and it goes to the garbage accidentally. It became a joke. And for the Greeks, it was actual moral virtue. You're a moral man if you enjoy art. And then I want to jump in history. This was from the Dark Ages, after the Greeks, where art represented religion, it represented suffering. It wasn't a celebration of life, but of suffering. It was about the other world. Remember Plato? whereas the Greeks was about this world. Now, after the medieval period, I'm jumping hundreds of years, the Renaissance with the ideas of Thomas Aquinas, a famous philosopher who integrated the ideas of Aristotle to Christianity. So that's what gave us the Renaissance, which was Renaissance means rediscovery, a rediscovery of ancient Greek ideas. That's what the Renaissance was. And then you have beauty. You have a return to the Greeks' ideas. You have a return to the seeing beauty as moral virtue, as against something that is useless or simply doesn't exist. And then you get these works of art. That has to do with the philosophy, remember. It's where we come back to Aristotelianism, where we focus on reality against the mystical world. Now, I'll jump to the 19th and 18th century because I can't go over everything, where we get ideas that go back towards the Platonist ideas with Kant, Immanuel Kant, and Hegel and other German philosophers. So these ideas in the 19th century, they attack reality. I'll give you a quote from Kant, which is very hard to follow. Thus we ourselves bring into the appearances that order and regularity in that which we call reality or nature, and moreover we would not be able to find it there if we or the nature of our mind had originally put it there. So what he's essentially saying is, what is reality is construction of our minds. We invent it. It's our ideas. It's not real there. What matters is the inner, is the subjective. So that what gives us, another example is, the world is my representation. Everything is, there's no independent reality that we can understand, but rather our inner world, our subjective thoughts and feelings, and that's what will give you rise to this idea that whatever I put can be considered art. So, for example, with Turner, who is a great English painter, unfortunately you can't see, but it's a very beautiful painting. But what you see is an image of the sea, of a shipwreck. But Turner puts his own expressions, his own ideas, his own dramatization. He makes it much more dramatic with color over the reality. So it's the emotions are more important for him. Expressing his emotions is more important than showing reality. That's the difference. And remember, this ties back to this idea of reality versus other world, the next dimension, or the inner. And then we get Impressionism, which you have outside lots of great examples of again, art being much more focused on expressing our impression of the world, our feelings,
Beauty
and not, what?
Beauty.
There's beauty as well. It's more about the inner world over the outer world. And then we get Blue Horses with Franz Marc, which I think is kind of interesting, but horses are not blue. So he allows himself the liberty to come up with blue horses because reality is my representation, as Schopenhauer said. So it doesn't matter. And then we get to the elevation of not only, you can say the blue horses are pretty, then we get to the elevation of the ugly. And I give you Dostoevsky again, from the Notes from the Underground. You should definitely read Dostoevsky. And why are you so firmly, so triumphantly convinced that the only normal and the positive, in other words, only what is conducive to welfare, is for the advantage of men? Is not reason in error as regards advantage? Does not man perhaps love something besides well-being? Perhaps he's just as fond of suffering. Maybe we like to suffer more than to be, to have a nice life. Perhaps suffering is just as great as benefit to him as well-being. Man is sometimes extraordinarily passionately in love with suffering, and that is a fact. Sometimes we like to suffer more than we like to enjoy. We like to be, maybe I like ugliness more than I like beauty. And then you get these things with Egon Schiele, who showed us the ugly sides of man instead of the beauty. And remember, beauty was a moral virtue. Now ugliness is virtue. Now ugliness is the good thing. And I do want to mention that as we get to the 20th century, there are still some good arts made. I give an example of my favorite composer, Rachmaninoff, and there were some good painters such as Gustav Klimt, who still had beauty. They were still about beautiful things, but they were more diminishing as we go towards the 21st century, and that is because of the philosophic trends, because of the ideas. Remember Schopenhauer, Kant, reality doesn't matter. There is not even reality. There's only our emotions. And then we get to the climax. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with this. This is Marcel Duchamp. Are you familiar? What's the name of it? It's called The Fountain. The Fountain. And this is Duchamp, who was a pioneer of these charlatans that would next sell bananas for hundreds of thousands of dollars. He said, what if reality doesn't matter, beauty doesn't matter. What if I just put a urinal and call it art? And you know what happened?
Wait, that's not a paint.
What?
That's not a paint.
No, it's not a painting. It's an actual. It's a sculpture. It's called it's a ready-made. He took a real thing and he just put it there. And you know what happened? People agreed. Yeah, it can be art. Who's to say otherwise? Art is subjective. Reality is subjective. Who can tell if it's art, if it's not art? What does it matter? Yeah. And then you get to here. So this is how we came all this way from, if I will go back to here, to like David, we came from this amazing, beautiful sculpture, all the way, because of these guys, we came, and this guy, we came to here, and then we came to the banana. That is how the history happened. Now I want to remember Aristotle, who said that art is more important than history. Art shows us what is possible. And remember that this doesn't do it. Doesn't do anything. And remember that we still have heroes. And these heroes, from movie film mostly now, they do that. They show us what is possible. This is, I don't know, is anyone familiar with this guy? Do you know who this is?
What a shame.
This is James Bond.
That's James.
What's happening to the world? A few days ago, it was the 60th anniversary for this great film called Goldfinger. This is one of the greatest heroes. He's a strong man who fights to save the world. And he's elegant, he has a good sense of humor, he gets all the beautiful women. He's a hero. And that reminds us what is possible in life. We can be more like him. We can't be him because it's a fictional character, but we can aspire towards that direction. Or one of my favorite characters, if anyone familiar with this show, Suits. Yes, this is Harvey Specter. And if you've watched the show, you know that he's the best. He's the best. He's the most well-dressed. He's the best at his job. He's the best guy. And whenever I see him, whenever I see the show, I think, I want to be more like him. I can be more like Harvey Specter. Or we go back to how it worked. I want to be more him. I don't want to compromise on my artistic integrity. We have to remember these things. So yeah, that's my message. We should care about art because it shows us what is possible. It motivates us. It inspires us. And we have to remember that there is art and that there is non-art. And whatever these charlatans are trying to sell us is worthless because it doesn't fulfill the function of art. Okay? So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. You can subscribe to my blog, where this is an essay I wrote in my blog, so you can subscribe and read, and you can also follow me on Instagram. Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you.